Greetings from the underworld. This is Carl Cactus Warmith, and you're listening to Thinker Stinker, where guests pick one film that makes them think and one they say stinks. Today's thinker is Wes Anderson's 2009 stop-motion film Fantastic Mr. Fox, an adaptation of the Roald Dahl story. Dahl is most famous for his handful of classic children's books, including Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach. Fantastic Mr. Fox sees its titular character and his family engage in a series of shenanigans with three nearby evil farmers. The stinker is Steven Spielberg's 1982 sci-fi blockbuster E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which follows young boy Elliot and his budding friendship with an unsightly but affectionate alien. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy. I'd like to welcome a badass botanist. She's punk rock with cool socks, Layla Getz.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, your thinker was Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson. So why this one?
I have a huge love for stop motion. It takes so much time and effort and work. Like every sweater, every little tiny shoe, somebody had to make that. And somebody had to make every part of the background, every part of every set. It's a labor of love, you know? It screams I love animation when you see somebody doing that. Especially Fantastic Mr. Fox, I feel like that really quirky style of animation works really good with Wes Anderson's quirky cinematography style.
I agree. It's really meticulous. It looks great.
All of the characters in that movie, they get so little screen time, like the background ones, but every single character looks different, acts different, walks different, talks different. The care that's put into even characters that you see on screen for a second, somebody constructed that whole character to look a certain way. It's just, especially with all the animals, because you would have to put on every single little hair.
There's the badger lawyer Bill Murray.
Oh yeah,
that's hard not to love. There's the outsiders rat Switchblade Willem Dafoe, who he always seems to be a villain in Wes Anderson movies. I mean, I think his villain in Grand Budapest Hotel is actually a little bit better, but similar in its kind of leather jacketed, slicked back hair aesthetic.
Maybe Steve Buscemi could rival him, but nobody plays a rat like Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi is arguably the best rat actor. Oh, you know what else I loved in this? I love the sports satire with the whack bat and the incredibly complex explanation of the rules. I think that resonates with anybody who's just being introduced to either a sport or a board game that sounds just completely confounding.
And I love that the coach goes through this long-winded explanation. Nobody in the audience is playing along. No, everybody got lost. And Christopherson's yep, got it. He's I got it.
What do you make of the rivalry between Christopherson and Fantastic Mr. Fox's son?
Okay, I think it's really funny because you have one kid who's naturally good at everything, to a ridiculous degree, and another kid who has an incredible amount of impulsivity, who is not good at anything, and that impulsivity in the end sort of is rewarded, while Christopherson's fear is sort of what gets him caught.
So how would you characterize the persona of Fantastic Mr. Fox?
He's just so cool and suave, all the time.
It's very George Clooney, isn't it?
Yeah. And the only person that's smarter than him is his wife.
Although I would argue his wife is underdeveloped. She's kind of barely in this movie.
Honestly, she just sort of stays at home most of the time.
There's scarcely a female character in this.
You're right, actually. Oh, there's the love interest. There's the love interest for Christopherson.
She's really secondary, isn't she?
Yeah, no, she's just sort of there to be there.
So is this your favorite Wes Anderson?
This is the best looking Wes Anderson film I've ever seen. And this is Wes Anderson at his most whimsical and best. So I've got a lot of respect for this film.
Not whimsical.
You're right.
I have this theory that every Wes Anderson movie is the same movie, with the possible exception of his 90s work, which are a little rawer, and he hasn't quite developed his thing that he does over and over again. The thing is, they're all good. There's this popular narrative that if an artist isn't transforming themselves, then, they're kind of stale and unimaginative. But Wes Anderson does this really well. I mean, he knows how to make just a charming, quirky movie.
Absolutely. That's also sort of why he's such an in like an artistic box these days. Like he sort of has to make the same movie because everybody's like, oh, it's not a Wes Anderson movie unless it's a Wes Anderson movie.
I agree. It is kind of restrictive. But you know, he gets a lot of flack for how strict of an auteur he is, how identifiably every Wes Anderson movie is his. You would never mistake any movie he's directed for any other directors. But Alfred Hitchcock's that way. I mean, it's not like he's the first guy to be like this.
That's true. And he can certainly do whatever he wants these days. He's got the money to do it and everybody loves him. So he'll get on whatever project he wants. But I guess he just really wants to make the same stuff. He knows what he likes.
So your stinker was E.T.
This is a little controversial, I understand, right? A lot of people love E.T. Here's my own personal experience. I was fucking terrified of E.T. when I was a child. Like, not the movie itself, but E.T. himself. He looked like a scrambled sausage. You know, he looked like a half-dead fetus. He looked like gonna, like, drag me from my bed at night. And I had nightmares about him. Because the first part of the movie is built like a horror movie. Everything is like tensing up. You know, there's the scene where E.T. is like in the fucking shed and the kid goes up to the shed and the ball rolls out of the shed and the kid's like, ah! And he pulls everybody out and he's like, there's a monster in there. You know, like that's a horror movie. That's horror movie shit. And when they go in there, they find weird ass tracks. Like I was so terrified.
I so contest that this is constructed like a horror movie at all at any points. I think it's so clearly like lighthearted fantasy, science fiction, mystery. It's so Spielberg. It's so sentimental. Like this could never be scary. This couldn't be scary if I was like fresh out of the womb.
Okay, now let me move on to my other complaints.
Sure.
E.T.'s fingers look like dildos, and when he touches the kid's face, it makes me feel violated. And the kid, I hate him. His voice.
Okay. To be fair, kid actors are rough to work with.
The first scene with him and like the other, like, you know, I don't know, like his brothers or something, but there's like
a brother and his brother's friends, I think, like the
right.
neighborhood kids, I assume.
He's like, guys, I want to play. I want to go out and play, guys. The mom has nothing to do with the whole movie. She's oblivious, completely useless as a character.
No, I agree. The mother is just, her defining characteristic is the fact that she is separated from her husband, and there's nothing else going on with her. She's frantic and completely depthless.
Oblivious, hysterical housewife. And, you know, she's like the only girl in the whole film.
Well, there's Drew Barrymore. She's easily the leading female character.
Yeah, well, I mean, the little girl kid, like, whatever. Like, she's in it to be, like, the token girl and to, like, add a little bit of help. But, like, that one scene where, like, they're pulling into to, like, save E.T., right? And she's like, we're going to the spaceship. And the mom's like, shh, be quiet.
The entire film, she's always going to corrupt everything. That's her role.
Which is also not great to see.
There's this other moment where I think it's her, the little girl, asks, is it a boy or a girl? And Elliot's just like, oh, it's a boy. How the fuck does he know that? It's a fucking alien, man.
Does he know that the alien has a concept of gender at all?
I mean, come on. It just doesn't make any sense. There's a couple other moments that stuck out. When they're dissecting the frogs are alive in jars, and they get cotton balls with chloroform on them. I guess that's how they used to do it. That was definitely not my experience in anatomy in high school.
Oh, no. And, you know, the teacher's all like, oh, yeah, they don't feel a thing. They don't hurt at all. But as, like, a person in science who has dissected things for classes, they do hurt. They're dying. But I think that scene was literally just to be like, frog in a jar, and we're gonna dissect him? That's mean to the frog, and that's what we're gonna do. They're gonna do that to E.T. Oh no!
All right, but this movie was incredibly popular. But is it just like a lot of blockbusters that, you know, it makes a ton of money, but it's actually no good?
It's that Spielberg cheese, you know? It's smelly, it's distasteful, but a lot of people seem to like eating it up.
That seems like a fair way to categorize Spielberg's career. He does this over and over again.
And unlike Wes Anderson, I don't care for Spielberg's same movie that he does over and over again. I don't care for Spielberg's childlike innocence and take on whimsy. It hurts me.
I think the movie is all right for the first 2/3, but by the time the third act comes around, I mean, it's suffocating. And then the score comes in and just ruins it even worse. Because up until then, I kind of enjoy, the mystery of the start. I don't really
Right.
like the setting that much, but I do like watching E.T. hobble around.
See him, he looks a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently he was operated by two little people and the legless 12-year-old boy, which is kind of interesting. They probably didn't get enough credit or pay, no doubt. Spielberg is just, bathing in wads of cash. Well, I wonder where they are. That's just conjecture, but probably true. I hate how rich Spielberg has become on these movies. Because
Yeah.
if he was a good filmmaker, it'd be one thing. But the only movies that she's made that are like really good are like subject matters where it's hard to fuck up, disrespectful to fuck up, like World War II,
Right.
the Holocaust. Yeah, I think this really plummets during the quarantine part,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't
Oh,
it?
it just comes into like the kids screaming, E.T. E.T. Children are not the best actors. We know this. We accept this. But like that kid, his range of expressions go from shocked and sad to shocked and happy, and there's nothing else.
It's so apparently the part of the movie where they want you to cry.
You know he's not gonna be dead. They're playing it up like, oh, he don't know, E.T. You know Spielberg's not gonna let him fucking die. Are you kidding me? The whole moment feels so like undeserved when they're like finally, oh, E.T.'s gonna live. Like why? Why should he live? What
Yeah.
happened so he should live now? Other than the power of friendship.
Yeah, it's super forced. The real stinker, if you ask me, is not E.T. the movie, but E.T. the video game.
Oh God. I mean, that was so much of a stinker that they had to throw them away by the thousands into a landfill because nobody wanted them.
And then it's got a New Mexico connection too, because it was in an Alamogordo landfill where they dumped them all and they finally dug them up. And I was watching some gameplay on YouTube, and yeah, that game's horrendous. You just fall into a pit. I mean, I don't know how ET could compete as a stinker with its video game, That's steep competition as far as like a shitty piece of entertainment.
See, the video game is unplayable. This isn't unwatchable. It just hurts me to watch.
Yeah, it's not the worst Spielberg movie, I can assure you of that. His debut, Duel, was a made-for-TV guy getting chased by a trucker movie. Just like awful. That one's unwatchable. Any final thoughts on this?
This film is like the antithesis to Fantastic Mr. Fox. Opposite color scheme. It's whimsy and cheese to the point of it like clogging my throat instead of wetting my palate. All around could use a couple of bad reviews. E.T. deserves all the bad reviews. Mr. Fox deserves all the good reviews.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on Thinker Stinker, Layla. Good as always.
Thanks for having me. Keep it real. Real slimy.
And there you have it, folks. Wes Anderson's cool, though I have to admit, he's not even my favorite Anderson director. Paul Thomas Anderson, first place, the Swede Roy Anderson, with 2 S's, second, and good old Wes wearing the bronze. This isn't my favorite of Wes's features either, which would have to go to either the energy-packed Grand Budapest Hotel or the Bill Murray-led Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Regardless, the director's relentless symmetry, autumnal palette, breezy storytelling, and A-list cast seldom disappoint, and I recommend his entire oeuvre. As for Spielberg, well, listen. He might have ruined the film industry forever with his invention of the blockbuster and Jaws, but at the same time, he has brought a lot of enthusiasm for movies to the general public. If Spielberg can act as the gateway to discovering and watching more movies for people, then great. But filmmakers get a whole lot more interesting than his oppressive Hollywood sentimentality. That's all for today. Peace out.